Hello, welcome back to episode 5 of Algebra, and today we're going to talk about exponents and all of their rules. Exponents have rules, and those rules make it so that we can use them effectively in algebra. But let's start off with just the basics and a reminder that a exponent is just telling you to multiply the number by itself a number of times. So for instance, if I had 3 to the second, that's saying you should multiply 3 by itself 2 times. So that would be 3 times 3, and that's 9. If you had 3 to the fifth, you would be multiplying 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, and that's 243. Okay, so that's what exponents are, but now let's look at some of the rules exponents have. The first rule is that anything that has an exponent of 1, so let's say we had 3 to the 1, that's just the number. So 3 to the 1 is 3, and that's called the ones rule. Anything raised to the power of 1 is itself. Another important rule to know is called the 0 rule, and that is that any number raised to the 0 power is actually 1. Okay, so if you raise anything to 0, that could be a number or a variable or anything, that's equal to 1. That's very useful when we're going to do some things later, to be able to take things out and make them ones. Some more important rules exponents have are the product rules. The product rules say that if you have anything, so let's say you have an A and another A, and they're raised to different powers. So one's to the second and one's to the third. When you have two of the same number and they're being raised to different powers and they're being multiplied by each other, you can add their exponents together. So in this case, you'd just add 2 and 3, and that would give you a to the fifth. Okay? So when you're multiplying two things that are the same, you can add their exponents. So you could do the same thing if that a was a 3. If it was 3 to the second and 3 to the third, that could become 3 to the fifth. When you're dividing, it works the same way, except you're subtracting. So let's try that instead. If we had a to the third and we were going to divide it by a to the second, you would, instead of multiply or add, you would subtract the exponents and you would get a to the 1. Okay, so when you multiply things, you end up getting, and you end up adding the exponents. And when you're dividing things, you end up subtracting the exponents. Okay, there's just a few more rules left, so let's make sure we cover those. Board number 2. Okay, the next one is called a power rule. So let's say you had 2 to the third, and you were going to raise that to 2. In that situation, you're going to multiply those exponents. So instead of getting adding them, you're going to multiply. So this would end up becoming 2 to the 6th power. Okay? So when you're raising something with an exponent to a higher exponent, you need to multiply them. Okay? Same thing goes if you were, lost my train of thought again. The final one that we're going to talk about in this video here, is the negative exponent rule. So let's say we had 2 to the negative second. We have a negative exponent now. Okay? Anything that has a negative exponent needs to go into the denominator of a fraction. So, as a reminder, every whole number is still a fraction, right? It's 2 over 1. So if we have a negative exponent, we're going to put that down underneath. So what that'll become is 1 over 2, and instead of being a negative 2 exponent, it's now going to be a positive exponent. Okay, so when you take something from the numerator with a negative exponent and put it into the denominator, it'll have a positive exponent now. So 2 to the negative second is actually 1 to the fourth. This works in the opposite way too. If you started with 1 over 2 to the negative 2, you could flip this up to the numerator and make it a positive exponent. Like such. Okay? So all of these rules are reversible. Okay? So those are our major exponent rules that we're going to be dealing with in algebra. The first one, of course, was the ones rule. Anything raised to 1 is itself. Anything raised to 0, the 0 rule, is 1. When you're multiplying two things that are the same, you can add their exponents. When you're dividing them, you subtract. When you raise something with an exponent to a higher power, you multiply those exponents. And then finally, if you have a negative exponent, you can flip that negative exponent down or up, depending on where it is, into the numerator or denominator. Thanks for watching our video about exponent rules. Next episode, we're probably going to do just a few examples of how to do some exponents. So can't wait to see you then.